This is everything AMD stock investors need to know what happened this week, from new customers, new products, recent interviews with the CEO, and so much more. Let's take a closer look in today's episode. All right, this is your first time here. My name's Jose Nahara, and this is the best place you're going to get any AI semiconductor news. Today, we're going to do our weekly AMD episode. This is episode 3, where we look at everything impacting the overall stock in the past 7 days or so. Now, this is going to be taking a closer look at some of the bullish, maybe some of the bearish. If I want to say, there wasn't much bearish thoughts this week, but a lot of bullish excitement, in my opinion. Now, in the past 5 days, the stock was up roughly 1.1%, sitting at $160. You can see AMD's forward PE ratio right now is sitting at around 31.5, a little bit cheaper than its 5-year median of 33.14. So right now, I do believe AMD is not overvalued at all. The other thing that we can see is kind of this great data center story for AMD, where in the last 12 months, we continue to see that revenue growth and growth and growth. And now with the MI350s and potentially the MI400 next year, I think this AI story is going to continue. So if you want more charts like this, 15% off, go to fiscal.ai/Jose. I am going to say they are increasing and changing something with their pricing in the upcoming few days. So make sure to lock in your price right now. It's definitely worth it. I use it on a daily basis. All right. So the first big news is this. So IREN, for those that are not familiar, is a company that's building AI infrastructure, is doubling their AI GPUs to 23,000 GPUs. Now, within these 23,000 GPUs, a majority is actually NVIDIA GPUs. And this is exactly what the market is, right? Obviously, it's dominated by NVIDIA. But for the first time ever, this is one of the few public neoclouds that I've ever seen publicly said that they're actually going to buy AMD MI350X. I mean, we know the big players, right? We know your Oracles, we know your Microsoft, we know your Metas are using some form of AMD Instinct. But this is the first time we're seeing one of these neoclouds really announce a nice order of AMD's MI350s. Now, 1,100 of the 23,000 is about 5% market share. So in theory, at least we have a data point that there is the potential of AMD getting 5% market share. This is the base that we can see right now. Now, this information IREN does share whenever they increase their AI GPUs to the press release. I think this information can be a double-edged sword. And what I mean by that is, let's say they double from 23 to 46 in the next few months. What do AMD investors want to see? The first thing they want to see is them increasing the GPU front from AMD, because if they increase, let's say next time they double their GPUs and they double AMD's from 1.1 to 2,200, you're staying with the same market share, and it tells you that IREN is seeing demand for that type of GPU. If they increase that market share even bigger, it could be seen as a way bullish flag for AMD. Now, unfortunately, if in the future, IREN increases its GPU by double, but doesn't buy any more AMD GPUs, that could be seen as a bearish or red flag. So I think IREN right now is going to be a great data point. And they do mention one of the reasons is the addition of AMD hardware alongside further NVIDIA GPUs broadens IREN's offering and addressable market. So they want to just be able to provide that appetite. So again, it's a double-edged sword. And during the upcoming announcements that they have, we want to make sure AMD continues to see market share. At least still, if it stays still at 5%, I think that's very bullish. But if it grows, extremely bullish. Unfortunately, if it stays still, extremely bearish. Now, that wasn't the only major AI news that we saw this week from AMD. On September 24th, AMD and Cohere expand their global AI collaboration to power enterprise and sovereign deployments with AMD AI infrastructure. For those that are not familiar with Cohere, this is a very popular AI company in Canada. We've seen recent investments of players investing in Cohere as well. But customers of this AI company will have access to AMD's Instinct GPU infrastructure for their full suites of AI offerings. This gives enterprise and sovereign AI initiatives in Canada and around the world more choices to meet performance and TCO goals that make their AI plans real. So, this, in my opinion, is another bullish note for AMD, right? It's not something that should drive the stock price up right now, but it showcases that AMD has partners with really big AI model companies and they are using their AI solutions. So you want to continue to see this progress, these kind of partnerships, these relationships with other AI models. So I think this is also in the bullish sentiment for the long-term ecosystem. The long-term ecosystem is showing that AMD is collaborating with some important players. Now, in the short term, I don't believe this should move anything, but it's just something we can add to our bullish thesis. Now, there were two in kind of conference interviews that happened with AMD's management. There's this video right here, AMD on modernizing infrastructure for AI. It was about a 15-minute interview, and it included the corporate VP of server products of AMD. Now, for 15 minutes, I do want to say the VP was a little bit too techy for most investors. If you don't want to watch that 15-minute video, what he talks about mainly is how AI continues to evolve. But one aspect that's getting forgotten in the AI market is that obviously GPUs are important, but CPUs are crucial for AI as well. And he actually believes that AMD will be the biggest server market shareholder in AMD market share in the upcoming year or two. Because right now they're sitting at, I think, around 41% market share, they continue to dominate and they believe their CPUs are going to continue to be a great demand due to the technology advancements. So again, 15 minutes, but that was probably the most important information that I got. It's just the importance of the CPU within the AI space. Now, the second interview was one with Lisa Su, the CEO of NVIDIA. This one was a little bit longer, about 43 minutes long. Now, this is an interview that had a lot of backstory, right? With this story, it's like, hey, Lisa Su, how did you start? What were some of the cool things that you did? And blah, blah, blah. So I wouldn't say it's fluff, but a lot of things that most AMD investors might know already. So I don't know if I would recommend this interview, but there were a few things that I found exciting from this. And the first thing is AMD talks about its chiplet bet, right? And at a corner store, it was around the 18-minute mark. The company decided on a roadmap of chiplets. And this was an innovation that involves breaking a large processor into smaller specialized chiplets that can be combined. And this approach offers a path forward as traditional monolithic scaling began to slow down. And this is one of the things that AMD has done really well, right? One of the reasons their APUs are really well for the data center market and for the consumer market. Their APUs, if you've seen their CPU with GPU chiplets, has been really, really good. And where they're winning a lot of consumer revenue. So nothing crazy there that should move the stock price, but it does explain a little bit of how AMD is definitely an innovative machine. The other thing, and we've heard this in other interviews, Lisa Su continues to believe that we're in the early innings of a 10-year super cycle in the data center market. We're only in year two. So very bullish for the long-term space. The other thing that Lisa Su also discussed was one aspect that she believes is going to be massive for the AI market is going to be the healthcare. The healthcare drug discovery is seen as a transformative end market thanks to AI. So again, it's a 43-minute video. If you are not familiar with Lisa Su, if you're not familiar with the AMD story, it's definitely an interview for you. Now, in their technical blog, AMD released some cool informations about this new type of model that's happening right now. So first, they mentioned day zero support to some form of AI models. They talk about a simple design for serving video generation models with distributed inference. They also talk about accelerating audio-driven video generation with this AI model 1 2.2. Nothing here to move the stock price. The reason I brought them up is it just showcases that AMD is doing a lot to make sure their day zero support. And that day zero support just shows that bullish sentiment, again, for the long-term thesis, not for the short-term, for the long-term thesis, that they're making software innovations and software movements. Now, for those that are not familiar with this WAM tool, this is a very popular model right now. I mean, you can kind of, I'm just going to show this video here. Hopefully there's no audio. But this person, right, I think it's just wow that you're able to animate this with the AI right now. Extremely, extremely, extremely crazy. It gets me excited about the future of AI if this is where we're at right now and where we're going to be a year or two from now. It opens up the opportunity to make massive, massive long videos. So again, nothing in the short term, in my opinion, that investors would going to go raising and buying new stock, but it just kind of gives that long term bullish sentiment that the software market and their software tech is moving in the right direction. Now, on September 24th, so that was 3 days ago, they mentioned the road to ROCm on Radeon for Windows and Linux. Now, for those that are not familiar, ROCm is their software solution for AI workloads, right? It's that kind of software platform. Radeon is their GPUs for the consumer market. And then Windows are obviously kind of what us consumers, Windows and Linux are what your typical developers and consumers use. So they mentioned that about a year ago, they mentioned that they will bring ROCm to Radeon on Windows and Linux in the second half of 2025. And they're proud to say that today they're delivering on that promise. We can now run ROCm on Radeon 7000 series and 9000 series GPUs and limited Ryzen AI APUs as well. Now, they mentioned that this is more than just a port. It's a proof of point of the shift of AMD is making when it comes to the ROCm platform. They're not just building it for the data centers anymore. They're accelerating their efforts to support client developers, creators, and innovators across the full software stack. Now, again, this is not something that should move the stock in the short term, but in the long term, what are they doing? ROCm, the consumer GPU, ROCm coming to the consumer market and consumer GPUs opens up the potential of developers who don't have the ability to maybe use data center solutions, who only have limited amount of resources, can now start practicing AI development tools on AMD solutions. So it's a way to kind of create an ecosystem to increase the amount of developers that can come to AMD's technology, right? That's the roadmap here. You're opening up a resource to a lot more future developers. And that's the great thing. Again, it's more just all these that I think about today are more just more bullish sentiments for the long-term thesis, nothing to really impact the stock in the short term. The other thing that we saw is AMD leads the era with AI. They kind of just kind of talk a little bit about the AI story, how AMD hits with various CPUs, GPUs, with DPUs, and their overall software ecosystem with ROCm. If you're not familiar with the AMD market, definitely take a quick read. It kind of explains a little bit of the different solutions AMD has. Now, this is one that I liked a lot. On September 25th, Tech Mahindra, a leading global provider of technology consulting and digital solutions to enterprise across industries, announced an agreement with AMD to kind of bring the collaboration to bring next generation infrastructure, hypercloud, and AI adoptions to the enterprise world. What does this mean? So I'm not sure if you're familiar. A lot of companies go to these consulting companies and say, look, I need to have my work do this type of AI solutions. Can you send some engineers? Can you send your consultants to help me out how to do that? NVIDIA has partnerships with companies like Accenture and ServiceNow. Now, these consultants, they're working on NVIDIA solutions, and this kind of helps spread the AI market to the enterprise space. Now you're seeing new consulting, and then AMD unfortunately doesn't have a partnership with Accenture, doesn't have a partnership with ServiceNow, from what I call, maybe I'm mistaken, but they don't have one for AI consulting and kind of spreading the ROCm platform to the rest of the ecosystem. Now, this is one where, yes, now they're able to work within a consultant. That consultant company will be able to help spread the AI enterprise using AMD solution. So again, nothing in the short term that would drive any massive revenue. Everything that AMD is doing, though, is that long-term bullish thesis being built out. The final thing I have on today's episode is we finally got the pre-orders opened to the ROC Xbox Ally X. And for those that are not familiar, Microsoft announces a new type of PC handheld gaming in partnerships with Asus. Asus, I believe is how you say it. And the chips that are powered here, you guessed it, are AMD solutions. Now, this is kind of like another gaming aspect. I personally have one of the prior generations. I'm most likely going to buy the Ally X. It's about $1,000. It is going to be powered by the best AMD APU out right now. So it just showcases the different ways that AMD is playing in the consumer space, in the software development, and in the data center market. So I think that's all we have here for AMD. If there's anything I missed, let me know in the comments below. Again, a lot of few interviews. If you want to get more techie, definitely check out the interview on modernizing infrastructure for AI. If you want to hear the AI story from Lisa Su, definitely check out that interview as well. To me, the biggest news was IREN buying AMD's MI350. Now, like I talked about in the episode, it's a double-edged sword of what happens next. Do they increase? Do they stay the same market share? Do they stop buying? And all those could have various reactions to the stock price in the short term. Finally, Fiscal.ai is a platform I do use on a daily basis. They are increasing pricing. They're changing things up. Lock in that legacy pricing. Check it out right now. I use it on a daily basis and I get so much value from it. So take care, have a good day, and see you all next time.